What is going on, guys? Matt with PhotoWorks here. And we are finally back on the Carl project
build.
His Integra that he wanted to originally get 400 horsepower out of. That was the original video we put out, but things have changed, Carl. So what changed? What's your new power goal?
Well, let's see. 400's not enough. It's not enough. Why not? I mean, you break a clutch, not even break a clutch, just break a bearing, and that's easier reason to build a whole motor. So why not, right? So we figure we can get what, 500 out of the stock fuel lines, and probably about 7 out of the upgraded Ryan Harmon fuel lines.
With E85 you want to run. He wants to run E85, but mainly 93.
93.
So you're shooting for what, 500-600 horsepower roughly out of this build?
93.
On 93 octane, with the potential to run E85 if he wants to. He might throw an E85 tune in there, but for now, yeah, he's shooting for big numbers.
If we want 7+, we're gonna need E85.
All with a non-Vtec head. So if you want to, in the comments, you guys can roast Carl on that.
Vtec.
Tell him to get a Vtec head.
Needed here.
I keep trying. Everybody else keeps trying, but Carl is steadfast on his non-Vtec head. So
Brent gave me hope. LS the world.
So what we did to the bottom end, at least, is we built it up to make enough power, and got it in the box here. We went to CSS, or Cylinder Support Systems, and they put their nice insert in here to brace the block here. So it's no longer an open deck block, it is a semi-closed deck, I guess. This plate goes down pretty far and actually gives these cylinders pretty good support. But with 9.8:1 compression, flat top Wiseco pistons, we didn't go super high compression because, again, this is a street engine. Carl wants to run this on the street, so we kind of went conservative there with the 9.8:1 compression pistons. We do have Manley, I believe, H-beam rods in there. I'm not 100% sure, but they're strong enough to support what we want to do. Basically, this bottom end is good up to 700-800 horsepower. So the bottom end is all assembled. CSS did that, and they actually did it for a really good price. But that is all done, assembled. We today will be working on the rest of the parts, and I'll show you what else we have here.
The parts no one wants me to put in.
So we did get LS stuff, which I gotta tell you, LS stuff is really difficult to find. It's sold out almost everywhere.
We like
anything Vtec, you can get Vtec stuff next day ordered. LS stuff, you pretty much have to buy it off your friend of a friend of a friend who eventually put a Vtec head on their car. But we do have the head here. We do have to clean it up today.
That
we're
right
gonna get
there.
the old valves out, and we're gonna put a new set of Brian Crower. We went with the whole Brian Crower setup, so we went with valves, springs, and camshafts. So we're gonna be putting Brian Crower stuff in. I do have other parts for this. I just don't know where they're at right now. We went with a JE Pro Seal head gasket because he does plan on running a lot of boost. I think, you know, with the head combo, it's going to be basically a matter of how much boost we can cram in there to get that extra power. And so we went with a JE Pro Seal head gasket and whatever Carl's doing there with his camshaft. That's his thing. And
Slopey.
I just went with Velcro gaskets for the rest of the stuff, so I mean, you don't have to get crazy on this. There are still a few parts that I need. We're kind of putting this together bit by bit.
All the boosts.
Carl got his turbocharger polished up.
Joe Bolognese.
So we're just going to be assembling this engine today. My goal is to get the cylinder head cleaned up, the new valves, springs, all that stuff in and then set that on top of the block so that I can cover everything and push it off into the corner, because we are waiting for a few things. Intake manifold, again, being non-Vtec, there's not a lot of people that make intake manifolds, and when you order them, you know, there's a 4 to 6 week wait to get them in. So should have just went Vtec.
No.
Just saying.
Just saying, you don't need it to make good street power.
Anyway, we're not going to listen to what Carl says right now.
You're gonna
but we
listen.
are going to get this cylinder
When the
head
numbers
cleaned
are
up,
done,
and we
you're
are going to
gonna
get the
hear it,
valves in.
And I'll race anyone that
let's
has
get
VTEC.
started. Let's get started.
All right, whatever you say.
We're going to get started.
Bashing.
So aside from scraping gaskets, we have been cleaning up the cylinder head here. Now again, since this is an LS head, if we spent too much time porting, polishing, and doing all that, the money you would spend on that, we might as well just get a VTEC head. So
you know, people do stuff and spend money.
we are going to clean this
sometimes. You just have to accept
well
it.
as we can, and that's nice and clean. I'm going to take the valves, which they're in a box over here. I'm going to take the new valves here, and after this is all cleaned up, dried off, and we make sure everything's good to go.
Half of it done for you.
We are going to just lap these valves into the heads, make sure that they're making a nice even seal the whole way around. And as long as that's the case, we can save ourselves some money by not having to take the cylinder head, at least to the machine shop. So here's the old stuff out. All this stuff could just go in a trash can, literally, because we are using none of this. You got your intake valves, those are all we got. New exhaust are gone, these cams are out, we've got new cams going in. Just have to clean up a couple more items, and then it's ready to assemble.
Yeah, let's
But
we need
it always cleaning is the worst, and I hate cleaning. Anytime I have to do it, I always like to put other people in positions of cleaning.
miles, I have no problem giving my little P75 no tech meat a little bit of love skeet meat.
It was a little bit dirty, but I mean, it looks a lot better than it did. And like I said, maybe we'll convince Carl to go VTEC at some point.
And the other car, yes, totally. Not this one.
But we're going to clean this. Carl has to go because I've got some stuff going on. So everybody say goodbye to Carl. And I'll be keeping in touch with him along the build here. I'm just going to be reassembling this, and then I'll show you guys here when it's all together, like the cylinder head. And then we'll go into putting it on the block. But
just call me when it's together, because I'm going to bother you in between anyway.
Sounds good.
Doesn't matter.
So, gonna finish cleaning this up and take a really good look at it, make sure that we don't have to take it to the machine shop. But cylinder head gasket wasn't leaking, it didn't have any issues there running, so I don't think I really have to worry about the head being, you know, perfectly flat. It should be good enough. With that JE Pro Seal gasket, it's going to take up any of those imperfections, you know, that might be there. But it was good before, so I don't suspect it's going to be any worse after. Second day at this cylinder head here. It's looking a lot cleaner. If you look in here, I'm not going to set this down, but all that staining is gone that was in there. Cleaned all that up with some Purple Power toothbrush. You know, the ports are nice and clean. Again, we're not going crazy on this stuff. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to take this in, get this head resurfaced, decked, all that stuff. I'm just going to, you know, some people get a 3-way cut valve job, stuff like that. But any money you put into this, literally you could just buy a head that flows better and is just a better cylinder head. But I am going to clean up the valves, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to take some valve grinding compound. I'm just going to see how these valves are, you know, sitting inside the head here. Everything cleaned up really well. I didn't see anything. Nothing looks bad. So like I said yesterday with Carl, all the surfaces worked before, so there's not going to be an issue with them working at this point. But yeah, we're just going to clean up these valves, get the new valves to sit nice and flush with this. If I do find something's not sitting right in there, obviously I'd have to take it into the machine shop, but we're going to try and save time, save money, and just put some valve grinding compound on there and get these valves to you know, mesh well with the valve seats that are already there. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'll just show you guys real quickly on what I'm doing, and I think most of you if you're watching this have done this and it works without a problem, so don't fix what isn't broken, right? All right, so I'll show you on an old valve here what I'm doing. All I'm doing is just taking this piece of rubber hose and I'm slipping it over the valve stem on the back side here, and I'm going to put some valve grinding compound right on the face of the valve here. I'm going to put the other end of the rubber hose in my drill. I'm just going to spin it around and it's going to sit nice and flush in there. Now I'm not going to go at a crazy high rate of speed. I just want enough that it puts a nice little lip around there, little edge like is on this valve here. And then I'll just take a look at it and make sure everything's sealing right and it makes a nice even score the whole way around the valve. And that way I know that everything is good as far as that's concerned. And again, these valves weren't bent, so I don't have any suspicion that these valve guides are going to be an issue at all. So I'm just going to get busy doing it. I know some machinists are probably cringing right now if they're watching this, but I've done this time and time again and I've had no issues doing this, so if it worked before, why wouldn't it work again? Ugh, my drill doesn't go big enough. Please hold. A nice even wear pattern the whole way around means that that valve's going to be sitting nice and flush. Just have to clean that out a little better. Same thing with on the valve, it's a nice even line the whole way around. So just got to do that 16 more times and then it'll be good to go. So I got those valves lapped in as you saw. And now I'm just going to be installing the valves with the slightly stiffer springs here. So we went with just a dual spring setup there. You know, these are, again, we went with Brian Crower for everything. So dual spring setup there. And then it just has the retainers on the top. It didn't come with lower retainers. I don't know why, but I mean, it looks like everything's going to work fine. It just didn't come with lower retainers for whatever reason. But I'm doing the valve spring install. I'm just making sure I get the keepers on this little groove on the valve here. Down there, you can see it. So I'm just putting these keepers here. And I'm locking these keepers into that little groove on the valve there. I'll show you this one here. And this is a real tedious process, just making sure that you get everything set right. So I'll show you on this one here, and then I'm just going to finish up the rest. I've already done 2, and you start to get a rhythm right around, you know, the last 2. But yeah, I'll show you what I'm doing, and then I'm just going to keep plugging away and getting this done. This is the portion here where this keeper is going to sit underneath this little lip here, like that. So it's going to sit in there just like that with the taper end facing down. And as you can see, if I try and put it in dry, it's just going to fall out. So what I do is I take a little bit of this, I've got some transmission assembly goo here, and I just put a little bit of that on the keeper, on the inside of the keeper there. And then when I put that on the valve in place, it's just going to stick on there. So just a little bit of goo, and then this stuff, as soon as the engine gets up to operating temperature, this stuff dissolves and blends right in with the oil, so it's not going to affect the car at all when it starts up and runs. If anything, it'll help, you know, to lubricate stuff when the engine is dry. But that'll hold that in place for me, and then once I get both of those in, I can relieve this tool here, the compressor tool, and then that'll just keep them just like these valves are. That'll keep those retainers in place, those little clips, and then it'll be good to go. The keepers are called. I keep calling them different things, but they're called keepers. So it's gonna keep doing that there. Let me just get this one set up now that you have an idea of what I'm doing. And a little bit of goo on there. Then I have a screwdriver to help kind of guide this stuff in. I get a little bit on the screwdriver there to help hold that in place, like so. And then I'm just going to plop that in with my shaky hands. That one's in place. Next one up. Plop that one in place. Just get it to where it's holding it in place there. Just like that. And then just kind of try and get this spring retainer to be centered on those, so you don't push one to one side and the other to the other side. You want them to kind of be centered, so when you come out, they just stay in place and hold that spring in place. Just like that. And then, I mean, the grease is okay on there, but you can wipe off a little bit of the excess there. But those are nice and installed. Again, this is a very tedious process. It's going to take a while to do it, but you start to get a rhythm. It goes easy. I wouldn't say it's quick, but it is easy. And then one thing I do after is I take the handle of a hammer here, and then I just smack on the hammer a couple times. And what I'm doing is I'm hitting down on the valve here, not the actual retainer. I'm hitting down on the valve here. And what that's doing is that's basically simulating when the valve is opening and closing. If these keepers aren't in there correctly, what'll happen is this will pop out. So me smacking on that with a hammer, the butt of the hammer, make sure that these are seated in there nice and tightly and they're not going to come apart as soon as you start the engine. So that's how you do it, and that's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of these. So yeah, we'll catch you on the flip side when all this stuff is done, and you know, just gave you a little bit of a tutorial on how to do that. Now the two become one glorious piece. Oh, awesome. So now we're just going to install our head studs. And the nice thing about CSS is they did a really good job cleaning this block up. So I believe these threads should be nice and clean. Notice the one thing that we are going with ARP head studs, because we're going to be increasing the boost pretty significantly. So first thing you want to do is make sure that these thread into the block nicely, which might have to put a little bit of something on there, or I might just clean those threads out. Let me clean those threads out. Now, I'm not putting these in completely dry. I'm giving them a little bit of a chance to thread in smoothly. Doesn't really matter if these studs are dry or not when they thread in there. is you want them to thread all the way to the bottom. Make sure that they are nice and secure. And these get hand tightened. That's what, and they put hand tighten in quotes, because it's not hand tightening them like this, like I'm doing. It's hand tightening them with, you have a little Allen on top, and I'll show you. Now, I'm not running these down with an impact. All I'm doing is I'm just getting them to where they bottom out. You want them to go all the way to the bottom. So when I make these hand tight, I want these thread all the way to the bottom and then stop. And once they stop, that's good. It's not going to go anymore. That's all they're saying when they say hand tight. So I've been asked before, why do you put head studs in an engine and not just use head bolts? Now, in a basic setup of an engine, a stock engine, head bolts are just fine because they do a good job of holding the engine's cylinder head onto the engine block, and then it holds it in place. But as you increase pressure inside these cylinders here, what a head bolt does is it actually lifts the block up to the cylinder head. Alright, so when you tighten this, if I were to just take this bolt and tighten this into the block, as these threads start to thread in, it's actually going to pull up on the engine block. Alright, so that's how it tightens it down. It actually pulls the engine block up tight against the head. Alright, so it's pulling in an upward motion. The other thing that's going in an upward motion is your piston when it's making compression. So if you've got two things that are pulling in an upward motion, it's going to be more prone to want to lift that cylinder head off because they're both going in the same direction. The head bolts and the pistons are both applying force or pressure or whatever you want to call it in the same direction. So that's why with a head bolt, eventually if you run enough boost, it's going to lift up and cause a head gasket to leak. What a stud does is it threads into the block, and if you look here, when you tighten the nuts down on the stud, it actually pulls the cylinder head onto the block. So instead of the block being pulled into the cylinder head, you're pulling the cylinder head onto the block and giving it more of a clamping force to fight off those extra pressures that you add to the cylinder. So that's why you go with studs when you start to increase the performance in your engine. Hopefully that was a good explanation of it. If not, sorry, it's the best I could do. But now we got the studs in, they're all tight. We're going to just drop our cylinder head on. Do not forget your dowel pins. So on this, doesn't really say up. I'm just going to have to line everything up and make sure that everything's sitting where it's supposed to. Beautiful. Everything lines up just like it should. Looks like I've got everything on correctly. Make sure I can't do this the opposite way. Like I said, there is no up or down, so. Trying to see what lines up better. Looks like it'll work either way. Just gonna put it on the same way the old one was taken off, I guess. That looks right. That looks wrong. Alright, so I'm just going to put it on the same way that this one was taken off. That looks right to me. There we go. Set that down on there nicely. And it looks like we are ready to rock and roll. All right, now that the cylinder head is resting on the block, going to take my phone out and I'm going to look up the ARP specifications, because you want to make sure that you're doing this the way ARP recommends, because these are ARP fasteners and they would know. So what they would like you to do is, again, we hand tightened all these studs in place already. Then the next thing was to set this on, and we just wanted to make sure that when we set this on that it didn't, there was no binding, and it set squarely on there, which it did. It just rested on there nicely. And then we want to lubricate the stud threads, the nuts and the washers with the Ultra Torque. So ARP has their own assembly lube here. You want to put this on. They recommend that you use their ARP assembly lube and not oil, because it gives it a more accurate torque, especially when you're using their torque settings. It's going to torque it down the correct way. So just get your Ultra Torque out, and we're going to apply it to the threads and the washers, and then the bottom side of the nut when we're putting it in there. As long as we do that, and we torque it to 80 foot-pounds in 3 steps, following manufacturer recommendations, like the torque sequence as far as that goes. I'm going to have to look that up again on Google, just like I Googled this here. But that's what I'm going to do now, and I like to listen to music, so you guys can just watch me do this, and I'm going to listen to music. So let's get started. So this. Everything's snug, and we're going to start torquing this down. I'm going to start at 30 foot-pounds first. Okay, now we're going to bump up to 60. Final torque of 80. Everything's still nice and smooth. So this is how it should be when you're torquing this. Nothing's jumping or catching. Smooth, torques up. All of them are torqued to 80. Now we're just going to go back through and confirm. Good. Now some people say, go to 85 or go to 90. It'll give you a little extra grip. 80's fine. I mean, if that's what ARP recommends, they've done a lot of research on it. So I'm happy with 80. It's all snug down. Now we can start assembling the cams in here. This is about all the progress I can make. I have parts on order. Carl's intake manifold came in, and we'll see how far he makes it through this video, because I'm not going to tell him it's in. As soon as I'm done recording, I'm taking this back off and I'm hiding it from him. So we'll see if he watches my videos the whole way through to the end. Camshafts are in, and I'm waiting on timing belt. I got the oil pump on. I need a water pump yet. We're going to go with a GSR water pump for this. And then I just bought a degree wheel and a degree kit. Now it's set up more for V8s, but it'll work for this, for what we need to do. I'm just gonna have to do it one cam at a time. So I'll degree in the intake and then I'll degree in the exhaust, or vice versa. But I'm waiting for that to come in. Belt, that's just something I'm gonna grab from Honda. Water pump, same thing. Have all the oil pan stuff over there. I just have to clean it and then I can drop that stuff on. Same with the rear main seal. So it's just cleaning the little odds and ends, but cams are in. That intake manifold is super shiny, but that's definitely going to flow a lot better than the stock one. Obviously, we needed to. Carl did also get his valve color. He got his valve cover polished, so that should look pretty good there. Let me set this on one-handed. It's not on the whole way, but you get the idea. And then I know in the meantime he actually spray painted his engine bay black, so should go well with this setup here. But that's the progress so far. And when those parts come in, guys, I will be buttoning this engine up and shipping it off to Carl's house. And then the next time you see it after that, it'll be getting dyno tuned. We're going to try to break it in on the dyno. And then once it's broken in, then we're just going to give it all she's got. And we'll see if it hits that 600 horsepower number. But don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I still have a couple of parts to order for this to get this thing buttoned up and ready to go. So that's the progress with it so far. Carl again changed his mind. He wants to go for big power numbers. I still think if he just stayed at 400 horsepower, he'd be just as happy. But hey, it's his car. It's his build. It's what he wants to do. I don't care. I'm anxious to see this thing make some power. Honestly, been staring at it for quite a while now, so I'm just ready for this thing to make some big power. But that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to those of you who subscribe to the channel. If you want updates on this engine build or anything else I'm doing, ding that notification bell and drop any comments you'd like to below. Builds you've done, what you think this thing's going to make power wise on the dyno. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. We'll see you in the next video.